Hey, this is Mike over here at Rixon's, here to show you how to drop the tank and insert a dip tube for your heating system on a 2022 Transit. Should be the same for 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. All of them are the same. Some late models like the 2022 or early 2023s did have an auxiliary tube already hanging off the tank, but it was an add-on option. If you didn't have that add-on option, you will be dropping the tank to get to the fuel source. First thing you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to take off the strap mounts for the tank. This is a shorter tank, smaller tank. It's only got 3 straps, so there's going to be 3 bolts on the driver's side, 3 bolts on the passenger side. The longer tanks have a 4th strap that you will have, 4 bolts on each side, but for now, we'll remove the 3 screws on the passenger, 3 screws on the driver. Make sure you have some type of jack, lift, or maybe do it when your tank is pretty much empty so it's easy and lightweight to deal with. You wouldn't want to do this with a full tank on the ground. For us, it doesn't matter how much fuel because we have a nice lift and nice equipment. From here, we'll take these bolts out and then we'll get back with you and show you what it looks like on top of the tank. So there is 2 different size bolts. The driver's side bolts are much longer than the passenger side bolts. I don't know if it really makes a difference, but Ford did this for a reason. So big long bolts on the driver's side, short bolts on the passenger side. Once you get all of your bolts removed from your straps, normally this front strap can come off. I usually will keep the strap in the orientation it came off. That way you can't flip it around or mix it up. I'll set the strap in the same orientation I took it off, so that way again you can't mix it up. This one's good to go, the straps are off. We're going to slowly lower this down. And again, if your tank's empty, it'll be fairly easy to do so. But as you lower this down, you'll see that there's mostly a couple lines that start to stretch tight off the bat, which are going to be these 2 lines here. So I'll normally take, some of these have foam, some of them don't. Why there's a difference, I don't know. But you kind of have to peel this foam back a little bit. I usually try to leave it glued to the hose, so that way when you put it back on, it just stays in place. I'll peel it off the back side there. Actually, this one's going to stay connected to the tank. Both these lines come out of this groove in the tank, so now you got a little more flex, a little more room. And you can keep on coming down. As you come down, because the filler neck is stretching tight a little bit, it's going to want to move the tank forward. There's just some water leaking out of the split loom here. So as you come down a little bit more, okay, so tank's pretty much down. What I'm going to do here now is I'm going to get myself a stool so I can see up in here. So what you'll have to remove here, first thing I always unplug are the electrical connectors, just to get them out of the way. And you can't, you don't have to worry about anything electronic kicking on or anything happening. This second connector has a little red tab on top. Now, can you see this here? This little red tab needs to slide that direction, like that. Little red tab slides, then you push on the plug, back of the plug has a release tab, you push on that. Electrical connector unplugs. So now, at this point, you have 3 lines to take off. Big line, no problem. This line on the rear side of the van, no problem. The one with the green tab is the pressure line. When you remove this line, it's going to have some fuel pressure, so you're going to want to do it with a rag. If you give me just a minute here, I'm going to take and pull these clips up. After I pull the clips up, I'll show removing the hoses. So sometimes these can be a little tricky to get up, what you kind of got to do sometimes. Let me try to get this light in a little better position. What you got to kind of do sometimes here is assist by opening up the tabs on either side a little bit with a tool. Once you get the tabs opened up, this green tab here will actually lift up, and now this is unlocked. Again, this is the pressure line. We don't want to pull this one off until we got a rag or something above it. It's going to spray fuel. So then this guy here, the big tab, I can kind of get a little stuck once in a while. And then, there she goes. So that guy's off, and sometimes, if you look in here, I don't know how well we're going to be able to see this on the camera. It's got these little ears inside here that I'm pushing on, so sometimes you have to get your screwdriver in there and kind of, oh, it's light. It's hard to record and see what you're doing the whole time. Sometimes you got to get your screwdriver in here and kind of pry these tabs out like this. One on one side, one on the other side. Once you do that, it will, and again, I'm sure you could remove this whole retainer clip, but I never do. So that guy's off. We got this red one over here. It's a little red one on the back side here. Same thing. So now all I got left is my pressure line. I'm gonna grab some rags here. So we've got the big line off, no pressure. Small line towards the rear, no pressure. Both electrical connectors are unplugged. We have just one green line left. And what I'll normally do here is I'll take some paper towels, some rags like this. And when you pull it off, it's gonna spray fuel. I'm gonna go nice and slow with it. So again, you know, you want to make sure no one's smoking, no open flames, and you can pull it off. Once you pull it off, not much fuel will come out of this anymore. It's pretty much done, but you do get that initial spray, so it makes quite a bit of a mess if you aren't prepared for it. You can always wear safety glasses and gloves. At this point, what we're going to do here, we have to remove this plastic cap, and that is going to be a 10mm socket. What I should have mentioned in the beginning of the video is these first mount bolts that I removed are actually a 13mm, and this plastic ring here is a 10mm. Give me one more second. I'll usually get myself a paint pen or some type of good marking pen that will mark on dirty, dusty areas. And what I'll do here is I'll take my paint pen and mark the assembly, mark the metal ring, mark the plastic housing, mark the tank. So when I get done, all these marks, all these different components will line back up where they should be. And you don't have to question it. You'll have to question it later on. So you got three little nuts here to remove. And this plastic ring comes off, and again, you see my mark here. You can see the mark on the tank and the mark on the pumps or the assembly, so I know when I put all this back together that all those marks should line up. So that guy's out. Now we need ourselves a sturdy flathead screwdriver and a hammer. Get yourself a flathead screwdriver, nice sturdy flathead screwdriver, and a good hammer. Now if you look at this, it's got a metal ring where those threads were, those nuts just came off of. This metal ring here actually spins, and that's what locks this tank down. So if you look, there's little notches like here, 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 where you can put the screwdriver on the face of the notch, smack it a couple good times with the hammer. I don't know if you noticed here on the video if it caught it, but this ring popped up when I did that. Now this ring's popped up. Again, you can see my yellow mark here where I marked it, so I know that should line up. Now that we got that off, you're gonna probably want to get yourself some type of drain pan or bucket, because there is quite a bit of fuel that comes out here. So what I use is a little kitty litter pan. This can get a little messy here, so you got to be kind of smooth with it. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. It has to be pretty center to come out. Like if you look, it's kind of catching. So you got to kind of make sure whatever you're getting there is just, it has to be like perfectly centered to come out of there. And so once you get it out past this white part that I'm trying to get out here, for whatever reason it's stuck on me. So normally I'd be able to get this pump out, but for some reason this fuel pump does not want to come out of this tank. I don't know what the problem is. So in this case, what we're doing here, this was the original dip tube here, the factory dip tube. We're going to pull this little tab back, the little yellow tab here. So that's in, that's out. Once you pull it out, there's a button here, and you flip it over, there's a button there. So you're going to squeeze both these buttons, and that cap comes off. Once that cap comes off, take a pair of cutters or a knife or whatever you want to use. Those cutters didn't work very good. There we go. Okay, so we're cutting this orange tube off that was originally attached to that dip tube. Get rid of it down here because there's no reason for it just to be hanging in here. Make sure you don't cut nothing you're not supposed to. Okay. And again, like I said, normally we'd be able to pull this whole tank out, so this pump out. This job would be a little easier, but for some reason, it's not coming out of this tank. I don't know. I've never had that problem before, but normally this pump would just pull right out. Not today. So what we're going to do is just put the dip tube in while it's still in the vehicle. So at this point, we've got the factory dip tube cut off. It was too big for the suggested size, so we're going to step down to the suggested Eberspacher size tubing. In order to do this, we need to drill this port out with a, what did I say, 11/32. 11/64. That's what it was. It was 11/64. So get yourself an 11/64 drill bit, and you're going to want to drill nice and slow. Take your time. I'm kind of doing it over the edge of the tank here, so that way any plastic or any debris that comes out doesn't end up in the tank. It'll end up falling down here if there was anything. So then you'll take this piece here, which is a rubber sleeve on this vinyl tubing, and the rubber sleeve seals the vinyl tubing on one side, but the other side of the rubber sleeve is actually kind of big and sloppy. That actually fits over this white port coming out of the tank, so then should be able to do something like this here. In this case, normally I'd be able to take the tank assembly out, but for whatever reason on this Transit, the assembly will not come out all the way. So we'll set our depth here. You kind of want to judge by the depth in the tank. If you look at this and how this works here, this white piece that we're actually going inside of the base of this fuel pump assembly is about 4 inches deep. And you don't really want to go all the way to the bottom of the tank, because then you can potentially run yourself out of fuel with the heater and leave yourself stranded. So that's something you don't want to do. So I usually try to keep it up, at least an inch or two off the bottom of the tank at minimum. Because this is a plastic port, what I'll do a lot of times is get myself some lubrication, WD-40 or whatever you want to use. Get that kind of lubed up there so this port will go over like so. So now this is seated here. The top side of it's seated down to the vinyl tubing, and the bottom side of it's seated to the plastic port coming out of the tank. You can drop that down there. Drop that clamp on there. Now in theory, you've put your dip tube in, you're pretty much done. If you look in the bottom here, I don't know how well we can film this, but what I did to hold it in place, this one kind of came out because I wasn't holding it. If you look right here, it's probably hard to tell, but there's a little hole. It's an extra hole in this fuel pump assembly. So what I normally do is I'll just set the tube inside there, and that keeps the tube straight from getting, curling up or getting out of the way. So I'll normally just take this tube and set it right like that. So now we kind of come out of here, got it going in there. At this point, you can put all this back together. And we'll start doing that. And just remember your marks on your paint pen. So here I have to start by going over this because this is already attached to the tank. Okay, something like that. There we go. Set that on there, and then you can take your flathead screwdriver and your hammer and beat this back into place. Now you pretty much want to go until this gap closes here. So if you look here, there's a gap right where the screwdriver is pointing here, and you want to keep beating on this until this gap pretty much closes up. And sometimes you got to kind of move around. A little bit more. Okay. A hair more here. We're almost there. Okay. Again, it doesn't have to go all the way closed, but pretty close. You want it pretty tight. So then we got the black plastic cap here that's got to go back on. Slip this over. Again, using our little yellow marks, we don't have to really guess where this went or how it goes. We kind of know because we can follow the yellow marks. Okay, that plastic cap is on. Find your 3 nuts that you took off. And there's one, where is it? Right here somewhere? Oh, right there. I couldn't see it. Okay, then we can tighten those up. It's just a little plastic holder, so you don't need to crank it down super tight. Nope, I can't get on it. There it is. Okay, so that's on, that's on, that's on. Now in the reverse order, we're going to plug our fuel lines back in all the way until they snap on. Sometimes, especially with this big one, it can get a little bit tricky, and sometimes you kind of have to, let's see if we can get this maybe there so you can see a little better. So sometimes you have to get these little ears here to kind of there she goes, and then it's all the way on. Click that down. It's locked in. Find this other port here. Push it on all the way. That one's in. I don't know if I can get the little tab to click on because I can't see where I'm at here. Okay. There she goes. Got this little electrical connector goes back here. Clicks on, no safety clip. This one here clicks on, and remember this little red tab that we had pulled out in the beginning, so this needs to get clicked back over into its locked position. So this is on, this is on, this is on, both plugs, everything's screwed down, everything's tight. We can clip the hoses back into the tank in the spots where we've removed it from the tank. And at the same time, with these hoses here, we can't put them back in yet because we need to lift the tank up. We need to raise it up a little bit. So make sure all of our stuff's out of here. Then we can start kind of coming back up into place. Watch both sides. Like over here, I'm hitting the drive line, which is pretty common to see. The tanks, so this tank's pretty empty. It's only, I think, half full, so it makes it pretty easy. To get up somewhere in this neighborhood here, I would stop. This is where we're going to try to get this foam tucked back underneath here. Snap these guys back into place. Put this foam, oh, I went wrong spot there. Okay, snap those guys back into place. And then we can kind of keep coming up a little bit. Now, in this guy's case, he wants the furnace on the other side of the vehicle. So I'm actually going to stop here and reroute my line to go to the other side of the vehicle. But if you had your furnace on this side, the driver's side of the vehicle, you wouldn't need to do this. You would just leave your line hanging out here somewhere. But in this case, I got to reroute the line. For all purposes, this is pretty much how you would drop this tank. You're going to push it back up. You're going to put your bolts back in your straps. Then you have your fuel line that goes to the heater. Now, if you're ever questioning if you're in the fuel, you can blow. You should hear bubbles in the tank. If you do, great. You're in the fuel. Everything's good to go. At that point, you've completed taking this thing down, putting a dip tube in it, putting it back in, and then you can get on to installing the rest of your heating system. If you guys got any questions, as always, feel free to give us a call over here at Rixon's. Thank you.